Welcome to Cheat Center. Join us for relatable cheating stories that will make you laugh, cry, and nod your head in recognition. David was exhausted when he got home after a long week of work. All he wanted to do was eat and go to bed. As he walked in the front door, he saw his wife, Kelly, walking from the living room to the kitchen. She was wearing a little black dress. David made his way into the kitchen and caught Kelly writing a note. She stopped, looked up at him as he entered, and smiled. "It's so good to have you home. I guess I don't need to leave you a note," she said. David raised an eyebrow. "What is it, Kelly?" She swept her hand in the direction of her outfit, silently indicating her question was about why she was dressed that way. "I'm going on a date tonight," Kelly replied. "A date?" David asked, clearly surprised. "Yes," Kelly said. "Lisa called earlier. She, Julie, and Emily are having a bachelorette party tonight. They invited me, and I accepted." "A bachelorette party?" David inquired, still not fully processing what she meant. "That's correct," Kelly replied. "And you're going?" David asked. Kelly lowered her gaze, looking at herself in the dress. "What do you think? Doesn't it look nice?" David smiled. "It does look good," he said, but then hesitated. "It looks too good." Kelly laughed lightly. "There's no such thing as too good." David's expression became more serious. "There is when you're the wife of a married woman who's going to a bachelorette party with her unmarried friends." "Oh, I see," Kelly said, understanding his concern. "You're worried about what might happen if you're not there." "Yes, damn right I am," David replied. "I see the way guys look at you when I'm with you. If I'm not around, I can only imagine what they'll do." Kelly stepped forward, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Honey, do you trust me?" she asked softly. "Of course I trust you, Kelly," David answered, his voice steady. "Then you should believe me when I say that all I'm going to do is have a good time with the girls, maybe dance with a few guys, and then come back home to you," Kelly reassured him. David sighed, still looking uncertain. "I believe you when you say that. I believe you'll do that tonight. But I am concerned." Kelly raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" David took a deep breath. "I know you enjoy attention. So, a few guys asking you to dance could easily turn into pretty much every guy in the room doing the same. And once you start drinking, you'll loosen up and lose your inhibitions. That's when things can get out of control." Kelly listened carefully, her expression softening as David spoke. "So, what are you saying?" she asked. David was firm. "I'm saying limit your alcohol. No more than 2 or 3 drinks. I don't want you to lose control and put yourself in a situation you might regret." Kelly smiled at him, a reassuring look in her eyes. "I promise, David. I'll keep it together. I won't drink too much, and I'll come straight home afterward. You can trust me." David nodded, feeling a little better but still anxious. He knew he couldn't control the situation, but he trusted her to follow through on her word. "I believe you when you say you're not going to, but most guys who want to dance with you will either send you a drink to grab your attention or ask you to join them for a drink after the dance. You won't want to hurt their feelings, so you'll say yes, and one drink will lead to another. It won't be long before you find yourself in their embrace. We've had to leave a few parties early because you became intoxicated and wobbly. If I'm not there to stop them, and your defenses are weakened by alcohol, I don't even want to think about what could happen," David stated. Kelly, still with her arms around David's neck, looked into his eyes and saw the genuine concern. "So you're saying I can't go?" she asked. "I'm not saying that, Kelly," David replied. "I know how much you enjoy going out with the girls, but I'm worried about what might happen if you go without me." Kelly stared into David's eyes for several minutes, contemplating his words. The more she thought about it, the more she realized he was probably right. She still wanted to go, though. A thought crossed her mind, and she decided to share it. "You say you're worried about what might happen if I go somewhere without you. What if you went to—" she suggested. David raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I'm sure the others would appreciate it if I attended their bachelorette party." Kelly shook her head. No, I wasn't thinking about you joining us. I was thinking about you going to the same club and keeping an eye on me from afar. That way, I can go out with the girls and have a good time, and you can be there to keep things under control. David looked into Kelly's eyes, noticing the nervous but hopeful expression on her face as she awaited his response. He considered her suggestion carefully. He still didn't like the idea of Kelly dancing with other guys, but if he were nearby, watching over her, it might be okay. Okay, give me 10 minutes to change, David said. Kelly laughed and jumped around excitedly like a little girl. She kissed him and then pulled him into the bedroom, eager to help him pick out what to wear. She rifled through his clothes to find something suitable for the night. The club is that new one on 3rd, Kelly said, looking through his clothes. I forgot what it's called. David raised his eyebrows. I think I know which one you're talking about. The one with the crazy coloring and 5 different shades of red. That's the one, Kelly confirmed. She picked out the clothes David would wear, and he quickly changed. So, how will this go down? Are you going to drive directly there? Kelly asked. Still excited about their plan, David nodded thoughtfully. So, will you and the girls meet somewhere and then drive together? He asked. We're meeting at Lee's and driving together, Kelly replied. You should probably go there right away, so you already know where the club is and where you need to be to follow me. David smiled, appreciating the suggestion. I think that's a good idea, he said. As they reached the driveway, they both headed for their cars. David grabbed Kelly's hands and pulled her close. Kelly, I want you to know that I trust you, and I hope you have a good time tonight, he said. I just don't want anything to happen tonight that we'll regret tomorrow. Kelly smiled and squeezed his hands. I don't want that either. I think having you nearby is a really good idea. I'll be able to have fun and still be safe. David kissed her forehead. Well, I'd better go to Lee's. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Okay, I love you, Kelly said softly. I love you too, David replied. They shared a kiss, then got into their cars and drove off in separate directions. David arrived at the club, parked his car, and entered. He began looking around. It's a fairly open space with a dance floor in the center of the main room and tables set up around the bar area. The bar itself is long and L-shaped, taking up almost 2 walls of the room. David ordered a drink, then sat at one of the small tables overlooking the dance floor. From here, he had a clear view of the entire room. About 15 minutes later, Kelly, Lisa, Julie, and Emily entered. They sat at a table on the opposite side of the room from David, but close enough to the dance floor that he could easily keep an eye on them. Their drinks were brought to them, and within minutes, all 4 women were on the dance floor. David didn't want to be the guy who looked like a psycho, staring at one woman all night. So, he looked around the room, trying to keep his attention elsewhere. But his gaze always returned to Kelly. A woman approached David's table. Would you like to dance? She asked, smiling. David looked at the attractive brunette. Sure, he replied, standing up. They went out onto the dance floor and danced to a few songs. Afterward, they returned to David's table for a drink. As David sat down, he immediately looked for Kelly. He found her at the far end of the dance floor, dancing with some guy. His attention was divided between watching her and the woman who had just danced with him. Which one is she? The brunette asked, noticing where his gaze was fixed. Which one? David asked, distracted. Either your wife or your girlfriend or something, she said, glancing back at the dance floor. Which one? David raised an eyebrow at Amy's question. What makes you believe I have a wife or girlfriend? He inquired. Amy smirked. Well, most single guys don't wear wedding rings, and most guys drinking with a girl at a private table don't keep their eyes glued to the dance floor. You never take your gaze away from someone. So who is she? David hesitated for a moment, but then answered. She's the blonde at the far end of the dance floor, in the short black dress, dancing with the guy in the red shirt. Amy looked at Kelly, then back at David. She's hot. So, you're spying on her? She asked. David quickly responded, No. She knows I'm here. Amy raised an eyebrow. Oh, are you one of those guys who gets turned on by seeing your wife with other guys? Hell no, David replied firmly. Then why are you here? Amy asked. Because I trust my wife, David answered. But I don't trust any of the guys in this place. And my trust in her dwindles when she gets drunk, which happens to her frequently. Amy nodded as she processed this. Oh, so you're here to make sure nothing happens to her. Exactly, David said. Well, if you don't trust the other guys and you don't trust her when she gets drunk, why did you even let her come here? Amy asked. David paused before responding. She has 3 friends. They're used to doing everything together. All 3 are single, and my wife is married. She hasn't dated anyone in nearly 4 years. Her friends didn't even ask her, but they invited her tonight. I wasn't thrilled about it, but we agreed that as long as I was present, it would be fine. Amy smiled knowingly. That's so sweet. You allowed your wife to go out and do something you didn't like, and now you're here to make sure nothing bad happens to her. David gave a small laugh. That's one way to put it. Amy leaned back, watching the dance floor. So, what happened? The guy she was dancing with, did he make a move? David sighed. He asked her to put his hand on her ass, and she pushed him away. The problem is, in an hour or so, after a few more drinks, she won't be able to push his hand away anymore. So, you intend to sit here and watch her all night? Amy asked. That's exactly what I was planning on doing, David replied. Amy raised an eyebrow. Well, you stick out like a sore thumb, sitting here watching her all the time. David looked at her, considering. So, what do you suggest I do instead? Well, Amy began, if she's going to spend a lot of time on the dance floor, maybe you should spend more time out there too. David nodded thoughtfully. I suppose that's a good idea. Did you come up with that on your own, or did you just hint at it? Amy grinned. I liked our first dance. That's why I'm suggesting it. Besides, I'm here tonight to have fun, dance, drink, talk. I don't have any intention of going home with anyone. And since you're married and keeping an eye on your wife, I think the likelihood of me going home with you is pretty slim. David smiled, impressed by her straightforwardness. Well, it seems we could be very useful to each other tonight. Let's go to the dance floor then, Amy suggested. David and Amy hit the dance floor, and the rest of the night unfolded. Amy helped David keep an eye on Kelly as she danced. As predicted, after a few drinks, Kelly loosened up and stopped pushing the hands of men away when they reached for her. Meanwhile, Lisa, Julie, and Emily couldn't seem to find anyone to connect with, so they ended up sitting at their table drinking. Kelly, however, was repeatedly asked to dance by different guys. Finally, near the end of the evening, Kelly, now exhausted, walked back to her table and sat down. Lisa and Emily were already there, while Julie was still out on the dance floor. Amy and David returned to their table, knowing that, with the night winding down, the guys would soon start persuading Kelly to go home with them. If I were you, David took a deep breath as he watched Kelly, Lisa, and Emily, knowing the night wasn't over yet. He turned to Amy and said, I think I should ask her to dance and then get her out of here before anyone else does. Amy, who had been observing the situation, nodded. That's a good idea. Thank you for your help tonight. I really enjoyed dancing and talking with you. David smiled and said, I enjoyed it too. He kissed Amy on the cheek and then made his way toward the table where Kelly, Lisa, and Emily were sitting. As he approached, he asked, Excuse me, miss, but would you like to dance? Lisa and Emily looked at David in surprise, exchanging nervous glances. Kelly, who was sitting with her back turned, didn't immediately recognize him. I'm sorry, but I think we're done dancing for tonight, Kelly said, not noticing David at first. David smiled and asked, Are you sure? Couldn't I get you to give me just one more dance? Kelly turned her head, her eyes widening as she recognized him. Oh, hello, honey. I didn't realize it was you. Of course I will dance with you, Kelly added, her tone lighthearted. Lisa, I'm assuming you're driving, so Kelly and I will head home after the dance. You don't have to worry about her. Lisa, who had been watching them, nodded. Oh, okay. Have you been here the entire time? David smirked. Did you really think I'd let Kelly come to a place like this alone? Look at her. She's in total distress right now. If I hadn't been here, she might have gone home with some other guy. Well, if you'll excuse us, David added as he took Kelly's hand. David led Kelly onto the dance floor, and they danced together for a while. Afterward, he helped her off the floor and toward the exit. Kelly, now very drunk, leaned on him for support as they made their way to the car. He helped her into the car and drove her home, making sure she was settled in bed before heading to his own room. Saturday morning, David sat in the kitchen, reading the paper when Kelly walked in wearing her robe. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. So, how much of last night do you remember? David asked casually. Kelly shook her head slightly. Not much. All I remember is that you were dancing with a brunette. David nodded. That was Amy. She saw through me and figured out I was there to keep an eye on you. She just wanted to dance, drink, and talk, so she assumed I'd keep things safe. She didn't think I'd persuade her to come home with me. Kelly frowned slightly. Am I out of control? David smiled reassuringly. No, I didn't let you leave my sight for more than a few minutes. I didn't notice anything wrong when you got drunk, though. Kelly sighed in relief. Good. I'm relieved nothing happened, David continued. Well, you did let a few guys grab your ass while you were dancing, and you probably touched a few bodies, but nothing too disturbing. Kelly blushed. Did I at least go home with you? Yeah, David replied. We had to stop by Lisa's later to pick up your car. Did I at least dance with you? Kelly asked, a bit sheepishly. David smiled. Yes, you did. In fact, you saved the last dance of the evening for me, right before we left. Kelly looked at him thoughtfully. And how was my health status after all that? David laughed. Surprisingly, no issues. I guess you had a good time. Kelly raised an eyebrow. It sounds like I did. I danced with at least 20 different guys, didn't I? Yep, David said. You danced with nearly as many as Julie, Lisa, and Emily combined. And as far as I know, you're the only one of the 4 who walked out with a man. Kelly smiled, clearly relieved. Thanks for letting me go last night. Thank you for making sure I stayed safe. Thank you for making sure I got home safely. David nodded. I'm just glad everything went well. I knew I didn't want to wake up in the morning wondering what might have happened the night before. Or worse, knowing it did, and it was something really bad. Kelly chuckled. Fortunately, we won't have to worry about that. David smiled warmly. I think I'll go back to bed and try to sleep, Kelly said, getting up from the table. Okay, David replied. I love you. I love you too, Kelly responded, leaning over to kiss him before heading back to the bedroom. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to like and comment and press bell icon for more cheating stories.